Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Alexander Birikov, as you can see, and this is React 101 webinar. Uh, just a couple words about me. I've been a full stack developer since 2014, and I have been using React in production along with its frameworks and tools since 2017. And I also, this is about my study, but it's not that relevant. Anyway, uh, if you want to hire me for front-end consulting or development, you can contact me on LinkedIn or on Telegram. And for training services, please feel free to reach me out on coding boot camps. Okay, let's get started. So the easiest way to start with developing with React is via this Create React app. This is a special service and a library and has templates. I'll just go ahead and show you how it looks like. So you just type in your terminal npx create React app and your app's name, and it should be installed and you're ready to start. I'm not gonna go through this process because it's a little bit slow and because it's downloading a lot of packages. I'll just show you the end result after I run this command. It should be pretty much like this. You have all these packages installed, not too many actually, just React and a few of its dependencies and testing tools, and also this high-level components. So, can you hear me? It sounds like I'm offline. Okay, okay. Awesome. Oh, sure. Okay, sounds good. Okay, so Create React app is all about this templates. You can actually choose between templates. You can choose more advanced templates like including Redux, TypeScript, and stuff like that. It's, I think, a good idea to search for templates using this query. CRA stands for Create React App, and you can choose from lots of pre-built boilerplates directly from NPM. Okay, so React uses this syntax called JSX. It's kind of similar to HTML, but it's not actually HTML. It's just special syntax on top of JavaScript that is being compiled into just native regular JavaScript. You can see an example here. So this is JSX on the left. It will be compiled down to this syntax, React create element. Okay, React has two types of components, function and class components. Function components used to be stateless before, but now they can actually be stateful via hooks, which we can see later in our presentation. And the class syntax, I think it's kind of obsolete. It's more legacy syntax. I haven't been using it in my new projects for like 2 years, but it's still around in some older projects, and maybe in some very rare cases, it's still worth to use this syntax, but it's kind of more complex. So we can compare two syntaxes in this short example. Maybe I can make it a little larger so that you can see the details better. Maybe it's too large. just please tell me. Maybe I'll do a full screen just for now so that you can see it better. Not so good, actually. Let me go back from this view. Yeah, I'm on a Mac, but F11 doesn't work. So maybe I can just refresh this window. Okay, it's better now. Okay, I should press escape actually. It says, okay, escape. Um, can you see the code actually? Is it okay like this? Okay, sounds good. All right, so these two examples actually do exactly the same, but the one on the left uses class syntax, and the one on the right uses function and hooks syntax. So these functions starting with use are hooks. This is a special syntax that provides um, this stateful functionality inside functional components. So you can see that the functional style is actually shorter. For example, in class syntax, you need two lifecycle methods like component did mount and component will unmount. And in the with hooks, you use just this use effect function that, and inside this return function, and you do the same that you were doing here inside component will unmount with the old syntax. So it's a little bit shorter and just easier to understand as for me, especially when you use complex state. For example, if here there was not just one value, but for example, two values, it will be a complex object with two fields. And with functional syntax, it's a good idea to use separate hooks for each field, and not bind them together in just one state. And with class syntax, you cannot do that because a state is only one. So it's a little harder to use this syntax, and also some strange effects can appear with asynchronous usage, for example, if you don't use it properly. But you can read more about all this in the documentation. I won't be covering all this class syntax because, as I already said, it's a little bit obsolete. So I'll be focusing mainly on the function syntax from now on. Okay, so in React, it's important to remember how to use lists, arrays properly, because React under the hood uses a diffing algorithm for updating the real DOM. So React doesn't update the real DOM like on every render. Instead, it updates its virtual DOM, and the inner algorithm inside React does some tricky things called reconciliation. So it applies only partially the virtual DOM on top of the real DOM. So, and in order to help this algorithm to distinguish between sibling values. For example, when you do a list, there will be a lot of different similar elements, and in order for them to distinguish, the algorithm needs this keyword, and it's important to use unique keys for each sibling. So keys should not necessarily be unique on different levels. For example, if you're using nested loops, it's okay to use the same key, for example, in the outer loop and in the inner loop, but on the same level, keys should be unique. Okay, so how to manage state with React? React, usually it's too small, I think. Maybe I can just show in my this. Is it better? Maybe I can zoom in a little bit. Okay, so I think it's a little better. In my IDE. So what I wanted to show you is a component with state. So how a composition of components works in React. Usually it's a good idea to hold a state at the top level and pass it down via props to the to the nested component. Like in this example, we can see that we have state in this component with state, and we don't have state of its own in this display components. So they are just displaying that state from the outside via that was passed via props. And in this example, in this input component, we are passing both state value and also this set value function. So we can pass via props both state and functions. So how it's all organized. And you can also see this use callback hook, which is a convenient way to avoid a re-rendering of this function, of this callback function. Because if we can use this actually without use callback, we can just use function assignment here like this, and it will still work. But the downside of this approach is that this function will be recreated on each render. So every time React goes through component hierarchy and tries to re-render the components, it will recreate this function from scratch, and it's a little bit of a performance issue. So in order to memorize or remember this function and avoid its recreation, it's a good idea to use this use callback hook. Okay, so even more advanced technique for using state is context, using context. The advantage of context is that you don't need to pass all the values via props, and especially it can be a very good idea to use this syntax if your component hierarchy is very nested, because it can be very cumbersome to pass these props, for example, from the top level all the way down, for example, like 10 levels down. It can be not very convenient to do so. So it might be a good idea to use context. Context basically uses this wrapper syntax provider, and you pass your state to this value property in the context provider. And after that, all these components that are wrapped inside the provider has access to the context via this use context hook. So we can access text value from here that we passed to this context inside our component, display component, without explicitly passing this state via props, as we did in our previous example. So it can be very convenient to avoid this duplicate passing of props. Okay, so that's basically it for this context. And there are even more advanced techniques for using state. There are dedicated libraries for state management, and one of the most popular libraries is Redux. Redux is dedicated to managing state inside. It's actually not tied to React. You can use Redux even with other display libraries, because React is basically just a display library. It only what it does, it shows, it renders your JavaScript code, this JSX syntax, and makes HTML from it. So it doesn't do anything like other than that. And in order, for example, to use routing, you'll need to use other libraries, like React Router, for example, which is separate from the core React. And this Redux library is also separate, and it's possible to use other state management libraries like MobX, for example, instead of Redux. So you don't necessarily need to use Redux in your application. But I'll show you Redux just for example, because it's really popular in real world production enterprise systems. And I'll go over how it works. Basically, in your UI, you have events, and like in a regular JavaScript, for example, you have a button and there's on-click event handler in this button. So what you do then, you inside this handler, event handler, you dispatch an action, and the dispatched action, an action is just an object, JavaScript object containing two properties: a type, which is string, and payload, which can be arbitrary, that contains your data. Like in an event, you can have event arguments, and it's kind of similar. And then these actions are dispatched to a reducer, and reducer is a special function that can only update the state. You cannot update state in any other places in your code. For example, you should not do state updates in the UI directly, like inside JSX. If you're using Redux, you should not be using any direct state updates, like use state, for example. I'm going to show you the Redux example so that it's a little clearer for you how it looks like. So, for example, this is our state that we received using this use selector hook. So use selector selects a part of our store, and the store is an object that contains all of our application state. So we can slice parts like pieces of this store object in order to use these slices in our display component. For example, here we selected only count from our store, and we can see the store. It's actually here. Here it doesn't do much. It actually only has this counter because this is just a boilerplate that I got using Create React app. So there's not much inside of it. But you can see that other than count, there are other values like inside our store. For example, there's also status and value. So also this is our dispatcher. We get dispatcher by using this use dispatch, and then we can dispatch actions. As I was talking about, actions are generated here. It's a little bit tricky. I'll probably not explaining it well because Redux is actually not that easy to explain. So I'm just showing you the very high level overview, how it all looks like. And for better explanation, it's always better to go directly to the documentation. And so I'm providing these links where you can always go to the documentation and read about all the details with examples. My internet connection is a bit slow. Can you actually hear me? Because it's kind of weird. My internet connection is kind of bad. Okay, it's not opening Redux for me. But you got the idea. So this is for state management. And also, I wanted to talk really brief about other tools that are very useful in React development. For example, there is this Gatsby. Can you still hear me? Because I think, sorry, looks like I disconnected. Can you hear me now? I'm sorry, but you can see my screen, right? So much. Okay, can you see it now? Okay, so I just wanted to show you other useful tools for React development. For example, this Gatsby is a static site generator. So if you don't need to use like a lot of state updates, you can all your content it's pre-built, like with blog, for example. If you're blogging, you can just create blog posts up front, and there's no need to update like them all the time. If you don't have a backend, all your application is in the front end, you can use Gatsby, and it also has a lot of templates for quick development, like blocks or even more complex, like it's kind of a CMS, similar to WordPress or stuff like that. But it's written in React, so Also, this is Next.js, which is more dynamic. It's possible to use Next together with server-side logic. And its main feature is that it provides server-side rendering and client-side rendering the same way. So it's possible to develop the same code that runs both on the server and on the client side. And it's very convenient. You use the same React syntax and it's executed both on the server and on the client. When it can be convenient, for example, Google, like Google crawler, really likes a static website. It doesn't like when the HTML is created to runtime on the client side because it doesn't appear immediately. So it's a good idea to pre-build your HTML on the server, and only after that, after your HTML is already loaded, you can just hydrate your JavaScript logic into this existing HTML and then do your regular React state updates. Can you hear me? It's kind of weird. Okay, awesome. Sorry, because it just sounds a little bit weird. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is this Material UI React component library. It has a ready component library that you can use in your projects. Let's just click this get started. It has basic components like buttons, for example, like different versions with examples, like also more advanced components like tables. And you can click this code right here and just copy and paste this code into your projects, and it should all work without much work from your side. And it also provides JavaScript and TypeScript versions, so it's TypeScript compatible. So it's a very good library for quick development without you doing a lot of CSS work. That's basically it. Okay, thank you for your attention and sorry for the technical problems. If you have any questions.